That's right, guys. Apologies are a waste of time. At least that's what I believe. Welcome back to my channel, Just Friends with Abdullah. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the support and love that you've shown me on this journey so far. And I hope you find this episode really insightful and useful to you. And why I'm going to be digging and explaining a little bit more about why I think apologies are a waste of time. Now, look, this is not to really have an attack on anyone that apologizes to any situation in life. Sometimes a verbal apology is needed to get by a situation, to solve a problem. But ultimately, I do think apologizing to someone is a waste of time. Now, it's important for me to mention this and mention it in every episode that I do on this channel is the message that this channel carries. The purpose of this channel is, like I always say, to bring us together, to have somewhat of a unity, of an understanding towards each other as human beings in society, to connect with to connect with one another better, to really enhance the relationships that we have with each other. That's the mission. I know I say it all the time and I repeat it all the time, but it's important to not neglect that part because without it, there is no reason for this channel to exist and there is no reason for me to just talk. So look at it from that lens and always remember that. So let's break this down. What is an apology or what causes an apology? Uh, an apology happens basically when somebody has done wrong by you or when somebody has committed something that has hurt you or that has damaged you in any sort of way. And it's very hard to move past that situation or that incident without somewhat of an apology. That's the definition of what causes an apology or what allows a person to actually apologize. You simply cannot move on from a situation until the party that caused the incident apologizes. That is, the standard way of how people deal with each other when there's a problem, when there's a conflict, and when there are feelings hurt or any sort of, emotional or physical damage that has been caused. An apology is the modern society standard of saying, all right, let's just move on. My bad. I'm sorry. And that's it. That is, I think, what we understand the concept of an apology is all about. Thing is, when people apologize to you, uh, the person that's receiving the apology psychologically cannot basically stay mad at you or cannot just continue to be upset with you. Biases, depending, of course, on the severity of the situation, usually by society standards and norms, you're supposed to move on. You're supposed to accept that apology. For some reason, an apology triggers something in your mind where, oh, that other person feels bad and he's done what he's supposed to do by apologizing and feeling bad about what they've inflicted upon you. And they're just supposed to move on. You, as a person who's receiving the apology, is supposed to just move on, accept it, or you're going to be looked in a certain way as somebody who wants to um, prolong conflict, who wants to prolong chaos. And that is why that issue is not closed. So, in some ways, the problem becomes you and not the person who has inflicted you with that pain, which has caused them to apologize. Now, you're going to be seen as the villain, as the bad person, because you simply haven't accepted the apology when it has been given to you, because you've continued to prolong this rift. You've continued to prolong this conflict between you and the other person. Now you're going to be seen in a bad light, even though you were the one that was wronged. Even though you're the one who's been, hurt, who's been in pain because of whatever the other person caused you. But why? I think the reason behind this is because in our minds, we think that uh, an apology is our way of understanding a person's sincerity. And when a person is sincere and when a person is honest and truly sorry, as an apology should indicate, for some reason society celebrates that. It celebrates that moral ethic that someone that has upheld. But why are you going to be seen as a bad person or as the bad guy? Simply because society, when some looks at upon a person that apologizes in a good light, they celebrate an apology. because an apology is meant to be sincere. An apology is meant to or is meant to supposed to um, fix a conflict. It's meant to give a solution to a problem. So when that sincerity happens, it's celebrated. It's given as a moral victory for society's ethics and morals. That's what it is all about. And because it's celebrated and because it's loved by society, if you do not accept it, you are seen as somebody who is going against what society wants, going against the normal tide, in a sense, which I think to me is very unfair for the person that's receiving the pain or the person who's going through that hurt of whatever circumstance they've been put through. And I do think to some extent they're going to be blamed for an issue that they didn't even start. I mean, when I hear an apology, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to say, "Oh, my bad, no worries. Okay, I accept it. It's fine. It is what it is. Let's shake on it and we move on"? Is that how I'm supposed to act when I hear an apology? Is that how I'm supposed to be for society to accept and not look at me in a wrong way? Because a lot of people have been blamed to prolong a problem just because they didn't accept an apology. No, I decide how I accept an apology. The person who's been wrong decides how they should receive an apology and how that apology if that apology is sincere or is not, if that apology is real or is not, if it's meaningful or is it not. Even within us, sometimes when someone apologizes and tells us, or when we hear the words "I'm sorry," "my bad," it's like a spell that ignites within our minds that removes any resentment, any disdain, any dislike towards the person. It's like it tells us to just forget about it, forget about the pain, um, forget about the problem that they've done to you. And that's because I do feel like in our hearts and in our minds, a lot of us are sincere people, and we just want closure. We want the other person to feel what we went through because of what they've done to us. We want them to um, connect and really show remorse to the pain they inflicted towards us, right? Or to the damage, or in whatever situation. And and sometimes when you hear the word "I'm sorry," it's like everything goes away because in your mind you want to forgive them, you want to let this go, you want to move on, and those words sort of ignite this feeling within you that it's okay, all right, they understand now, they apologize, they're sorry. But unfortunately, a lot of people have misused that word, and a lot of people have taken advantage of that word and has caused more damage and more harm than even before. Don't say sorry, be sorry. This quote, in a nutshell, explains the essence of a true apology. It really elaborates on what it exactly means and what's true sincerity when it comes to an apology. Apologies are a waste of time because words lack substance behind them without foundation. I mean, think about it. When someone says sorry to you, does that solve anything? What if somebody does something where they lose a lot of money in a business or in a company? An accountant loses hundreds of thousands of dollars, or a surgeon, or that kills, by accidentally does a mistake in the operating room. Those are I know those are very extreme mistakes, and they don't happen often. But an apology doesn't really cut it in those situations. And also, you're faced with another dilemma. People nowadays lack a lot of insincerity. Sorry, people nowadays lack a lot of sincerity. They lack a lot of it, and it's not just because of they lack sincerity that you don't know how to act or what to do, but you can't really know who's lying to you or who's being sincere or who's not being sincere. You're not really sure. And when someone just says words to you, you don't know, you wouldn't really know how to act on it, right? Because most people understand that they can manipulate others, they can play with them, and that can really hurt and and cause further damage to other people. Because of that mindset, you're not really sure. And that's why I always say that saying something is really worthless without substance, without foundation, without action. And that's the point. An apology is a waste of time. But instead of saying the apology, you need to be a real life example of what the apology should be. Meaning, you don't repeat that mistake. Meaning, you learn from it and you don't apply it again. Meaning, you understand what the person went through because of what you did to them and you never do it again. And that's the action that's needed to proof the apology. I read this amazing quote by Stephen Kemaden, and I think it explains a lot about our personalities and how we are as people. He basically said, you don't apologize for something that you chose to do. It's like apologizing for being yourself. Think about it. In a lot of situations, when we do something, we're doing it because it's us. So, why would we apologize, or why should we apologize for something that is actually us doing it? You know, the person. You chose to do it, that means you believe in it. That means you are who you are, in a sense. That means when you apologize for something, your words don't change anything. It's your action. It's your willingness to cause change. It's your willingness to change your behavior because of what you did with your action that has caused. You know, Stephen mentioned something very important with this quote. And that is something we are all scared to reveal and talk about, is sometimes when we do something, it's really who we are and it's really what we chose to do. So what's the point of apologizing in a sense? What is really the point? Now, I personally think a real apology comes down to something very important, is understanding the consequences and the ramifications of what we have done, and by changing and altering our behavior to never do it again, or removing ourselves from a situation that could cause us harm to do it again. That is what's a real apology. That is what's a real apology. A real apology is committing to never do that action again, or removing ourselves from situations that could cause us to commit that action again. It is about altering our behavior. It is understanding the nature of what we have done has caused harm to the party that has been harmed. It is understanding the consequence and the ramifications that we have done to the party that has been hurt, that has felt the pain because of whatever we have done. That is extremely important. It's altering behavior. Altering behaviors are not easy because you're trying to change the habit. You're trying to change how your mind works, how your mind applies certain situations. And that is a true apology, because when you change your behavior, more likely than not, you will never repeat that action again. Humans aren't infallible. We are always going to be making mistakes. We are always prone to making mistakes. That's the nature of life, I think personally. And there are no ways around giving second chances. This is why I believe in second chances, because nobody can be perfect. Nobody can be always on their best behavior, and nobody can always be correct or absolutely spot on from the beginning. That's why many relationships break down over desirable aspects like greed, ego, desire in itself, and I think lust as well. And I think that's why there is no way you can avoid giving somebody a second chance. Now, a lot of people do not want to give second chances, whether they say it or not. A lot of people do not want to give a second chances because it's not about because they do not want to progress. I think it's because they want to avoid being hurt again. They want to avoid feeling, or they want to avoid feeling that bad feeling they felt the first time, that horrendous, horrible feeling that hurt that they felt the first time. So that's why they don't want to give again another chance or risk a chance for them to feel that way again. But I think that's a topic for another day that I'm going to talk about deeply, because it's very interesting. And I think that's the mindset we need to have, and we need to accept that in many cases we will probably have to give a second chance, because sometimes it takes another person to let that person who did the mistake aware of how they did it and what they did wrong. We as people, we always teach each other. We always try to learn from each other. And sometimes you need to teach a person that has done that mistake. They may lack the awareness of knowing what harm they've caused. Saying all of that, a real apology comes from desire, from willingness, from intent to change a behavior that has caused harm. that is when you really understand someone really wants to change, or someone really wants to apologize and live by the apologies that they gave you. It is by changing their behavior towards whatever harm they've caused. It is by the willingness uh, to have an action and counteraction to whatever they've done towards you. And that willingness comes from intent, like I mentioned, and that willingness comes from desire. That is the only way you're going to measure and understand someone's true apology towards you. And that's when you will really feel better about someone who has harmed you in a way, and how they can really fix that and rectify whatever problem they've caused. An action is always going to be the biggest indicator when it comes to sincerity. Why? Because there's a desire to change, there's a desire to be better. And that is a very, very important when it comes to an apology. Guys, I know I say this all the time, but please like, subscribe on the channel, show me some love, show me your support. If you love the content, please just sign up. I'm gonna do more videos. I'm gonna try to be more consistent with my content, and hopefully gauge if you guys like this kind of approach. Let me know if you appreciate it. Let me know if you're a fan of it. And don't forget to like and subscribe once again. Thank you very much. We'll talk soon.